when last we left our fearless explorers.
Yes.
They were exploring a space station above a planet with a planet-wide storm. And they'd come here because the humans used to be getting signals from this planet. But then almost all the signals ceased. And there was just one signal, and some of the scanning ships had scanned the planet since then. And there's this planet-wide storm. So we were sent to investigate the signal on the planet. And we got to this station. It shot at us. We crashed into it. We got onto it. There was limited oxygen. I'm just recapping last mission, basically.
Yeah.
And everyone was exploring around. We had figured out how to enable the oxygen production from these super plants, and Dr. Yoon was getting super into that because it was really very fascinating. And Hawking was investigating the rune, I call them runes, but the symbols that are clearly the language on the some doors. And Pill was investigating the weather machines. And that's basically where we left it. There actually was
Empele was investigating the engineering section. There was like
it's true, but we forgot to talk about that last time, so we'll have to talk about that. But yes. That is where it was left off, but we'll have to talk about how she got there in the first place.
Yeah. All right, well, let's just recap that then, because that was basically last session.
Yeah. So just beyond the section that was like the beginning section, there was an area, and there was two things in that area that I don't think we talked about. One is there was this pod that had, after scanning it, had life signs within it. And it was determined, they looked at it some more, and it
was basically a cryopod.
It was clearly a cryopod. Whatever was in there was dormant, but they couldn't figure out anything else.
Yeah. And these things are like scattered around in the hallways of the
there
station,
were more over by where the weather room was as well.
Yeah.
I think we forgot to mention last time.
Yeah.
And beyond that was a room that had a whole bunch of consoles, and it was clearly for controlling like the logistics of the ship and stuff, right?
It was engineering, essentially.
Yeah, basically. And so, of course, Anne Pillay started digging into there, and she started really investigating. And also another thing that happened is that was right against, the station is shaped like...
there's this big central pod, and then there's these two wings that have like crystals in them.
Yeah.
Big, giant crystals.
And we were right up against one of the wings, and there was crystals like growing out of the door into that wing, so you couldn't get in there. It was like all just encased in crystals, and it was growing a bit into the engineering room that Anne Pillay was in.
Yeah.
And Anne Pillay started investigating this and trying to figure out how to control things, and she figured out that there's a series of access tubes, like Jeffrey's tubes or access ports or whatever, that run throughout the ship, but they're, for security reasons, they're locked and they're controlled from, she can control them from this room, but I need my pita anyway. She can control them from this room, and she starts to have a major breakthrough. She doesn't understand the language, but she just understands how this system, how this space station is designed, and it's just so elegantly designed. It's so obvious how everything fits together, and she starts having this big breakthrough. And throughout this time, as people like make good checks, Tim has been giving them little Lego blocks, and so she crossed over the 5 Lego blocks just like Dr. Yoon did, and she's having like, if she keeps studying this, she's learning so much about engineering and like her of how to build things, and it's really going beyond anything she's ever known before.
Meanwhile, Pill is reminding everyone, be careful, because this is suspicious. Everything is suspicious.
It's all too good.
Everything's trying to kill us.
Well, and everyone is becoming like, everyone is finding something that's like, wow, this is amazing. If I just study this more, I'll learn so much. And a couple of people have had major breakthroughs.
Yeah. Pill has been studying the weather machines, but has been sort of doing it with one eye closed.
He keeps failing again and again because he's unwilling to commit fully.
Yeah. And he keeps asking over the radio, asking Chumley, am I behaving peculiarly? Because Chumley is the other one that is not succumbing to this temptation. Yeah, that's sort of where the session starts. Reach off in our area, working on things, Antley opens some Jeffrey's tubes for Chumley. Is that where it started out?
Yeah.
Yeah. Chumley wanted to do some more exploring of the areas that had been sealed off. And so Antley was able to remotely open some Jeffrey tubes access ports. Oh, and also while all this is going on, Pill, in order to further his deception that he is human, had to go and get some oxygen from the oxygen place to replenish his suit. So he went there, and you had a breakthrough on the translator. That was also early on, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was pretty early on.
Yeah.
I think it was while Chumley was going through the tubes.
Right.
Because one thing that happened in the tubes was one of the tubes they tried to go through was completely blocked by those same crystals.
Yeah.
Then they had to go a different way, and he got into this other part of the ship that was past what I guess I forget. I think Ampli figured out it was the main reactor, but they couldn't get in that room, so he got into kind of the hallway beyond that room and was exploring around. There were a whole bunch more pods. Meanwhile, I'd moved into this room that has like all this information and
consoles and stuff.
Consoles, and they have a lot of the symbols on them. So I started going there, and I had a major breakthrough in the language. And this language is so alien that our translators weren't able to translate it. But it's because I realized how elegant this language was and how perfectly it all fit together. And I started having a major breakthrough in how languages work, and was able to jury-rig the translators to translate this language now. And I started looking through the logs, and I was really obsessed with like reading the logs and finding out, what happened here, because it's really interesting. So I told people they had to come to me if they wanted me to fix their translator so they could understand.
And I was faking getting oxygen anyway, so I went over there and got my translator updated. And then I headed back to the weather control machines, or weather machines. I didn't know they were weather control machines yet, so I figured that out a little bit. So yeah, I head back down there, and as I'm approaching the door, this is on the other side of the station, so it's near the other big wing filled with crystals.
Okay.
And as I'm approaching that door, there's the door to the weather area, and then there's the door to the big crystal wing. They're right next to each other. So I'm approaching both of them. And a voice comes over the intercom. We've been hearing this occasionally, and we don't know the language, so we don't know what this is all about. But now my translator's working. So voice comes over the intercom, and it says, the science section is a restricted area. You can't go in there. Don't open the doors to the crystal area, essentially. And so I announce, I am the human Lieutenant Pill. I'm not going in there. I'm going into the weather machine area. And I can't remember what else
It was basically, it was just kind of confused.
It got confused by what my response. And then I was like, okay, well, I guess it said its piece, and it told me not to go in there. I wasn't going in there anyway, so it's irrelevant. So I went into the...
Well, I think Pill basically dismissed it, and it was like, what? And we just ignored him, and it was kind of annoyed that, like...
I was like, very well, I won't go in there. That wasn't my plan. Thank you very much. Moved on.
And so...
I was a little confused that I had simply, it's like, very well, moved on. Because it could finally communicate with me, and I wasn't really interested. Because what I wanted to find out was whether this station belonged to the destroyers or it belonged to the locals. And the key to that was whether this machinery I was working with had created the storm or not. And so I resumed working on that. And everyone else at the table was a little bit annoyed because I could talk with the aliens.
And you weren't interested.
And I wasn't particularly interested.
Why did it have to be Pill that made first contact? But as you will see, it got worse.
Oh, I should note, we always name these episodes, Flint Daniels and the Bloody Blah.
Yeah, but Flint Daniels is not here.
No, and we'll call it Flint Daniels and the one he wasn't here for or something like that. But the subtitle for this particular chapter of this episode should be something along the lines of Pill was right about everything. Because he was. Anyway.
For a certain definition of right.
Yeah. So.
Just like everything Brian says.
So let's see, what else was going on there? Antley was like getting super duper into all this investigation stuff. I'm trying to think of anything else really spectacular happened before the...
Before I don't know if it was before or after you figured out about the weather machine, but it was around the same time that,
I think I figured it out, and then everything went haywire.
yeah, it was right around the same,
Yeah.
it was as you, so, but anyway, by the time that things went haywire, I knew,
Yeah.
I'd looked through the logs of
yeah.
of the station, and I had discovered that this station, it was called Epiphany Station, and it was founded by the locals from the planet when they received the message. They got this interstellar message, and it really advanced their technology, and they built, I guess they could access it better from space, so they built this space station to study the message, and maybe the message was only accessible from space, because I think they set the space station up, and the advances developed here were like vastly improving the scientific status of the planet. And then...
And I was sort of discovering at the same time that this, in fact, was weather-controlled machinery, but it had originally been built by the locals to try and modify the weather in positive ways. So, and only later...
Yeah, to create like a paradise.
Yeah, just to
make
create a paradise.
all the weather like super awesome on the whole surface of the planet.
And so at that point I realized, this station wasn't built specifically to destroy this planet.
Not built
it
by
was
destroy.
some sort of accident or whatever. So so I was like, okay, I'm done here.
Investigation complete.
My investigation is complete. And I was getting worried because I was still getting, as I was investigating, even though I was being very careful about it, Tim kept giving me those inspiration blocks.
Right.
And I didn't want those. Because those are like symptoms of the advance of the mind virus or whatever it is that's going on.
But you didn't figure that out until you had your first epiphany.
Yeah.
So Pill did like start seeing just how brilliantly this weather thing worked, and like.
And that was when I basically wanted to drop everything like a hot potato.
And there's like some kind of like super intelligent plasma or something that that the thing runs on, and like if you brought that home to Earth, you need the technology and the algorithms from here to like make the whole world into a paradise, but you could definitely use it on a local scale to like start improving the weather, and if you started investigating it, you might be able to
But I dropped the investigation at that point because I was getting too inspired. It was worrisome. Let the other humans do that. So yeah, I exited the weather control room. Is that about when everything went haywire?
Yes, because I think you tried to talk to that intercom.
Yes, I resumed talking because I was like, okay, I've discovered what I was trying to learn there. Now maybe I'll talk to these aliens and discover if, did someone come and sabotage their equipment, or did they just screw it up, or whatever.
What happened?
Yeah, because if they just screwed it up, then I'm like, well, this is a bit of a dead end to my investigation, but whatever. So I exit the room, and the being on the intercom accuses me of duplicity. How dare it? I am not duplicitous. I am the human Lieutenant Pill.
And worse, it's talking like, we've figured out you're an intelligent species, and you are duplicitous. Like he's applied the duplicity to our entire species because of its interaction with Pill.
But thinks Pill is a typical human because I have told it that I am a typical human.
Right.
So anyway, I try and do a diplomacy check essentially. Phil is like the anti-diplomat. He is, everything about him is wrong for that. So I draw cards, and I get the worst result.
Right.
For my already bad starting position. And so whatever entity is on the intercom, like...
Well, I was just going to say, one thing I'd found out in the logs by now is that this species, they're plant-based, and they are completely pacifist. They've never had a war in their entire history. They just don't like...
The recording doesn't show this, but I'm making little air finger quotes around some of those words there.
Yes, Brian has a Brian interpretation of events as usual. But anyway, they're completely pacifist.
John will vouch for the sequence of events that occurred immediately afterwards.
And they've never had a war. The thing that's like their biggest shame they feel about their history is this one time when a bunch of the plant creatures blocked some other plant creatures from getting somewhere they wanted to go. That's like their World War II. So it's like they never attacked. They do have there is some sort of like they have had to fight things because there are dangerous animals on the planet, but they're not sentient. So like they'll like fight and like contain and whatever non-sentient beasts, but not sentient creatures. Right. So we know they're completely pacifists, and
Yeah.
and so that enters into I think what
Well,
he first says to you, or it's
He
related
knows-
to it.
yeah. So anyway, I exit the I have exited the weather control room, and I've been talking to this guy, and he gets all like, oh, you're a bad man thing, and so suddenly the station reroutes life support over to this section. So whoever's on the intercom has taken control of some of the station's systems and has rerouted life support over to my section, which causes those pods, the cryopods, now that there's a habitable environment around them, those cryopods pop open,
Right.
and these big vine monsters come out. They're like big giant masses of vines.
But they're peace loving. So
They're peace loving, and they lunge for Pill.
Well, the
and
guy
so
tells
Pill-
them, make sure you got to stop him from getting into the weather room or the science.
the control voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm standing right by the door to the weather room, and there's giant plant monsters lunging at me. So I take a step back and try and slam the door to keep them, off of me, but they're too quick, and so the giant plant monster tackles me and is grappling me. Is trying to grapple me. So yeah, I've been grabbed by a giant mass of tentacles.
And at this point, I can hear over the intercom what's going on. I'm the diplomatic officer, and I'm like, oh no. I've already been annoyed with Pill, and I'm like, oh no, Pill is ruining everything. So I just start running down the station as fast as I can towards this location. But it's a big station, so...
So I am under attack. And previously, in the previous episode, it had been established that this space station was incredibly fragile, and so we couldn't bring any of our weapons. We had to make spears.
Yep.
However,
But you have a grenade.
I am insightful and forward thinking, so I had smuggled a grenade with me. So,
Indeed, you had.
so I'm grappled by this tentacle thing, so I pull out the grenade and I pull the pin, and I declare, this is a grenade, I am not duplicitous. Let me go. And so the plant monster lets me go and jumps back and is sort of like, okay, standoff.
Because he can destroy the entire station.
Yeah, if I let this thing off, everyone dies.
And the voice in the intercom is horrified that, like, we've immediately resorted to violence. So
I've immediately resorted to violence.
Pill the
I
spokesman for our entire
started this.
species. And
Yes.
so, like, the first thing he does is lie and then pull a grenade.
The
And
first thing
on
I
this
do is
pacifist species.
Is get tackled.
Just a grenade, though. It is a kill everything.
Yes,
Yeah.
I have been attacked. I was talking with these people. I was communicating with
Detain
them.
him for everyone's safety. I will murder your entire species. Get off me.
And in fairness, when he got off me, I didn't murder their entire species. I just simply held the grenade with the pin in a standoff. I didn't go for the controls, anything like that. All I wanted was for him to not be grappling me.
So Pill establishes control over an entire species.
Yes, I am now in charge here. Because I'm the one holding the live grenade. And so, yeah, I resume diplomacy. But then, these guys charge in and ruin everything. So.
About the time I got there, and shortly after that, Chumley got there, because Chumley was also running there. And I come in, and first I try to, I make a nice speech, because I know they're pacifists about, we're here, we really want to learn about your species, and I know that, our species has had problems in the past, but we want to learn about how you've managed to maintain such peace over the ages, and, that sort of thing. And, really quite convincing, and I'm very convincing, so he is very convinced that we're not all a bunch of duplicitous people who will blow him up at a second's notice. And I also tell Pill to put down the grenade, which he doesn't do, but...
I put the pin back into the grenade.
I thought...
Was that later on?
Yeah, that was later on,
Yeah.
because I said it in a very commanding voice, because I've been very commanding this mission, but not everyone always listens to me, since I rank the same as them.
Yeah.
But then Chumley comes
Pill
in.
doesn't really recognize tone of voice anyways. So.
And Chumley is saying, you need to, Pill, put the grenade away. And and I'm saying put the grenade
Yeah.
away, and I'm doing the face palm thing, and I
Yeah.
asked him if the translator translated the face palm thing, but it didn't. But
So I guess I did when Chumley asked me then.
Chumley grabbed the live grenade out of your hand.
This is after I put the pin back in.
Was
I
it?
know at some point I put the pin back in before it got grabbed out of my hand. It must have been Chumley who asked me because
I thought that was part of the risk, is because
I'm remembering quite clearly that by the time Chumley grabbed the grenade, the pin was back in it. It was one of the main reasons I was so annoyed that they still grabbed the grenade from me, even though I had put the pin back in it. So I was, I
Maybe
was
you put
playing
it back in right
nice,
away.
and yet they
Phil
went.
was being perfectly reasonable.
I was being perfectly reasonable. I'd put the pin back in the grenade, and they still grabbed it from me. And the worst part of it all is Chumley also has a grenade, it turns out. So now Chumley has 2 grenades, and I have none. In what world is this fair? Anyway, so yeah, Chumley was the one I trusted most, though, because Chumley was unaffected by this Epiphany mind virus thing. Even I had succumbed somewhat, so. But yeah, apparently it's not like, it's not really mind control-y. So the fact that I am on guard and basically saying I'm not going to, let my curiosity run wild and all that kind of stuff is enough that I'm, not going nuts. Ampele, on the other hand,
I think that didn't happen until after the next part.
I think that's happening throughout all of this.
She's investigating more and more, but she didn't have her second breakthrough until after so the guy on the intercom, he's convinced by my eloquent speeches that humans are not bad, or that humans are more violent than them. Actually, this is a thing. Humans are more violent than them, but we're trying to be better. And all the other aliens we've met, like in the cosmos, seem to be even worse than us.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's like
that was. I initially freaked out one of the plant monsters after it let me go because I had a grenade. The intercom guy was talking about how the universe is peaceful, but you are hostile or something like that. And I was like, well, unfortunately, I have an epiphany for you. It's like the universe is not peaceful. It is filled with horrible, horrible, violent things. That's why I have a grenade.
Tsunamis of genocide.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he asked us actually to come talk to him. So he unlocked some doors, and we were able to go into the other section of the thing and get to the bridge, which is where he was. And he's this plant guy. And we know other people must have referred to him or something, but he's the gardener.
The gardener is his title.
He's this plant guy, and you go into the bridge. We go into the bridge, and he's standing there in front of all the consoles, and he's holding this cylindrical blue device in his hand at the ready, and he invites us in. I'm gonna start talking to him.
Is Ampele there, or is she?
No, she's still off in engineering land, delving further and
Being
further
inspired.
into the machinery. And
It's just Chumley, Pill, and Hawking.
yeah.
And we start basically talking to him, doing more diplomatic stuff, but also learning about what's going on. And he says, he's the gardener. He cares for, he's like a caretaker for large amounts of his people. It's not clear exactly how large, if it's just the station, or it may actually be like more than that. But anyway, and he is here for the well-being of them. And they came here to study the message. And then we started talking to him about how we were having epiphanies on this station.
And he started freaking out about that.
Yeah, he started freaking out. He's like, they get in your mind, and then you just start to know so much more. You start looking deeper and deeper. And then he pulls the trigger on his thing.
Yeah, and
Hello, who are you?
he wiped his memory. So yeah, throughout our conversation with him, every time we start talking about the epiphany too much, and he starts thinking about it too much, he panics and wipes his memory. And so, yeah, at this point, I'm like this is double confirming all my fears about this mind virus that, because basically they built the station and they wound up, getting overrun by too much. Yeah.
So he said that basically,
And so,
as they discovered stuff, this took multiple times through him erasing his memory, but
Oh, hi. Who are you?
Yeah.
Oh, hi. Who are you?
we eventually found out it only erases 5 minutes. So once we had got 5 minutes in, at least we didn't have to go through that part again.
Right.
But anyway, they came here. They started having these epiphanies. People started talking about all this stuff about transcending and transcending to becoming beings of light and all this stuff. And then they started doing this thing where they would the crystals that had started growing from some of the places where people had epiphanies. They started seeding them, so the crystals were growing more and more. And that was when he decided, okay, this is bad.
This is getting out of control.
This is some kind of virus. This is some kind of evil thing that is like it seems like epiphanies, but really it's just leading you to this
to make us spread this crystal,
this whatever it is.
And so at that point I was like, okay, we got to go stop Ampele because she's getting deep into this.
Yeah.
So at one of his mind wipes, I took that moment to slip out the door so that he wouldn't remember that I had slipped out the door. And I was running across the station to go back to where
because around
Ampele was.
around this time she had her second breakthrough, and she started realizing like how she could use, engineering to transcend this world, and she got this transcendent check, and the crystals started growing around her, and she started wanting to spread the crystals, so she started doing that. Meanwhile, while he's running there, the gardener was explaining that essentially what happened is he realized this was really bad, so the people that were too affected by, he cryo-slept everyone, and the people that were too affected by the thing, he basically wiped their memories in a way that basically lobotomized them so that they would stop understanding the epiphany, and put them into cryo-sleep too. And that's actually the guys who attacked Pill were like kind of out of it because they had their mind affected.
I got attacked by lobotomized plant monsters.
Yeah.
And he created the storm on the planet to prevent the message from getting through to the planet, because I guess it was getting through to some degree, and they wanted all signals from this to stop. So he's shut off the planet, and he was horrified to find out that this system had been broadcasting. He had hoped to shut off all signals, but there was an emergency broadcast beacon, then that's what we picked up on. So he quickly shut that off and was horrified that it was on, but it was too late. And he told us we were doomed and we could never leave here, because if we did, we'd be spreading the epiphany.
So around then, Pill got to Ampele. And Ampele is like, busily spreading crystals around in the...
What does that look like?
I don't know how... She's sort of like doing something to make crystals grow, using technology.
I don't know.
Anyway,
already were cross crystals, so she's like growing them.
I tried not to pay much attention to that though, because you don't want to investigate things. And so I just sort of, grabbed Ampele by the lapels and was like, "Snap out of it, human! You're succumbing to the mind virus." And Ampele started going on about how transcendence and stuff. So I started punching her in the head to try and do my own mind wipe routine on there.
Forget.
And so we mutually drew like cards for combat. Neither of us is actually any good at combat, and so we actually tied. So at the end of the session, that's where we were basically
But I think it shook her out of her transcendent state. She wasn't able to maintain it.
So I'm at least distracting her by trying to punch her in the head until she forgets this stuff.
And it seems like certainly Pill and also Chumley agree with this gardener guy that whatever. And what he wants to do is he thinks we can't leave because we're infected.
Yeah.
But he wants to, if he can restore power, then how does it go now? If he can restore power, somehow he can
he wants to overcharge his memory wiper.
Right.
And
wipe everyone on the station's memory, because some people are holed up in the wings.
Yeah.
Wipe everyone on the station's memory and then send them home in the escape pods to save his people.
Right.
But that would apply to us too.
Right.
Or we wouldn't be able to leave, or I don't know. He doesn't think we can or should leave. And Chumley and Pill seem to agree that this thing is definitely bad. Hawking doesn't necessarily think it's bad, because the epiphanies that people are having are real. They actually let them figure stuff out. So maybe this whole transcendent thing is actually real. Maybe the crystals are actually something good, and it's just sort of feels like his reaction might just be this is some new thing. No. We got to stay with the old ways, right? So it may not be legit that this thing is actually bad. Hawking doesn't believe it's good. It's just I'm undecided whether it's actually bad or good. Pill and Chumley are definitely this is bad.
This deadly poison has a sweet-tasting bait, essentially.
Ampele is all for it, of course. I don't know about Yoon. Yoon is definitely enjoying what she's learning. That's where we laugh.
It's very Star Trek.
Except they took my grenade away. I had the situation completely under control.
So, Pill and Tim, I think, is expecting us to kind of go along with the gardener and try to get the power back on. Because we need power back on to get our ship out of there anyway. Hill and maybe Chumley think that we should just blow up the station. Just because, like, whatever, you know, this is something real. Everyone here is
make
infected.
the storm go away.
Not necessarily. It's self-sustaining, actually.
It started it, but it's not keeping it up.
Yeah. Basically, if I had my druthers, we'd like grab a power cell so that our ship can go, head back into the ship, toss a grenade into the airlock as we go, and then
wipe your memories.
No. Well, okay. I guess we'd probably have to leave some of our crew behind then. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really. Yeah, I'm not sure what we're gonna do about that, but
Yeah.
I think the
mean,
supercharged memory eraser.
Yeah.
I think his idea is you can erase a memory without lobotomizing.
Yeah.
So I think that's, if we believe this thing is bad, I guess we kind of need to do that.
See,
or die.
The thing is, though, we're only risking Earth. So
Bill doesn't give a shit.
So yeah, it's an
Bill's never
it's an
going back
acceptable risk.
Well, it's similar.
Bill's never going back home.
I'm not saying anything about.
That's part
See, Pill is very good at keeping secrets.
No, he's not.
That's part of why
You're not there.
Chumley wants to blow the station, I think, too, because the gardener's plan is we wipe the memories and then. Oh, right, that's right. It's not the lobotomized thing. He can actually wipe all the memory of the station, so you don't remember being on the station when he supercharges it. That's why it's shit. Anyway, and then his people can go home. But Chumley figures, well, why do we want to risk the whole planet? Like, why? There's like 20 people here. Let's just kill them. Then we don't risk an entire planet. What if it didn't work?
Right.
Yeah. See, these plant creatures, since they're pacifists, they're unable to see the full scope of solutions that are available here.
Yeah.
Such as killing everyone.
Killing his own people wouldn't even occur to him as a possible solution.
So
Why mind wipe them when you can just kill them?
It's a form of mind wipe.
So much easier.
Very thorough.
They already have tools. They can do this now.
Anyway.
You just destroy the whole planet while we're at it.
Yeah.
We don't need to. It's surrounded in a storm.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. If
Already
the whole thing
done.
is surrounded by a storm, then what do they eat?
We don't know.
How do they photosynthesize?
We
I
don't
think
know.
They're all dead.
Could be.
Well, they are in pods right now.
No, I mean the
People
ones down on the ground.
on the planet. Like no sunlight is getting
Yeah.
through the storm,
It's a
right?
storm thick enough that no signals can get through.
Yeah.
Well, he did ask about that, and he did say that, like, he's not sure how people are doing under the storm.
Yeah.
Whether people might have, it's possible bad stuff has happened because of that, but it's better than the Epiphany, which is just, I feel like he's like, I don't know, I feel like it might be kind of like a rock and roll thing, right? Like, oh no, rock and roll. Get out of here.
It seems like there should be a middle ground here.
Well, the Epiphany.
A couple of epiphanies.
The
Just like a
Epiphany-
little epiphany.
Yeah. Well, Pill
I
would
feel
be.
like it's pretty strong. I feel like it's either actually awesome
Yeah.
and good, or is actually extremely
Yeah.
dangerous.
Pill would be willing to experiment, by letting this loose on Earth and see what happens.
Or just make another space station that
I mean,
can't communicate outward.
his
Yeah, you don't even send signals. You get them infected
Yeah.
with like a single epiphany,
Yeah.
and then you just put them
Let
under
it
a
run.
science, and then you just like
See what
fly around
happens.
Jupiter
Yeah.
for 100 years
Yeah.
and see what happens.
Do some science on the Epiphany thing.
Yeah.
See if it's bad or good.
Anyway, that's where the situation stands.
Do the people who had a single epiphany get worse over time?
The people, I don't know. Well, the people who had a single Epiphany, they get one higher on all their skill checks. That's the big difference. And if they get fame, the next one up is legendary, which is the thing that doesn't even, like, legendariness is not something in my mind for this kind of setting. Like, it's not a sci-fi thing. And then the next level above that, once you have two epiphanies, is if you go two above the max, you get transcendent. And that's what happened to Anne when she got it. She made a transcendent skill check and then became, like, obsessed with transcendency and spreading the crystals in particular.
Until I punched it out of her.
But for the people who've had a single epiphany, do they have like a desire to go back and get more? Are they?
But they do have
they do.
They do seem to have a desire to keep studying it as much as possible.
But Pill has
if they're-
resisted that.
If they're
so-
taken away from the Epiphany source, then
Do they retain the epiphany?
I don't know. We don't know.
Yeah. I mean, Pill was able to basically say, "I'm done here. Pencils down. Move along."
And he did get an epiphany.
And he did get an epiphany.
I mean,
so.
the Epiphany definitely is real because people, like I jury-rigged the translator in a way I wouldn't have known how to do. So the gardener kept saying it was not real. It's like just a trick. But It isn't a trick, it's real, but then ultimately it leads you to start spreading the crystals, which
Right.
does seem like a bad thing because that just it's
Seems like
consuming space with crystals, right? And the question is though, like, unless those crystals are somehow awesome, they are an energy source. So that's the station is actually powered off those now. Its central reactor hasn't been powered in hundreds of years. It's powered off those crystals. So they are a power source. So
If you take the power from the crystals, does it infect your ship?
I was thinking we would take the station's reactor since they're not even using it anyway.
though I don't think it has any fuel in it. Although we have fuel, so if we can jury rig it, but I don't know.
Yeah, because that's the main thing holding us right here, right now, is our ship's power systems are shot.
Yeah.
We need to fix that. Because I was unable to deflect a laser with another laser. Oh well. Lieutenant Pill, personal log. Encryption key 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, I was correct. Not about all of the details. This isn't a destroyer facility. But it may have been taken over by the destroyer. That remains to be seen. There is some kind of mind virus here called the Epiphany. There is also a memory erasure device that could destroy the Epiphany and could potentially destroy my knowledge of the Epiphany. So it is vitally important that this log be preserved. Meanwhile, the Epiphany has infected Lieutenant Anne Pillay and has been using her as a host to propagate itself. I am currently punching her as hard as I can repeatedly in the head in an attempt to prevent this. It isn't going as well as I had hoped. I'm going to have to try and improve my head punching ability. Perhaps Lieutenant Chomley was correct all those days ago when they were practicing punching. No, I must remain focused. I can't let the epiphany of punching overwhelm me.
I'm learning so much here. This is everything. The secrets of the universe are before me. The crystals, they're showing me so much. It's more than just knowledge, it's truth.
Lieutenant Chumley, I've come to the conclusion that all my companions are dicked in the knob. Good thing I brought a grenade.
Bill, Sabine, stop hitting each other. You just gotta stop. Stop fighting.
Bill, look, the crystals. They're showing me the universe. No, Bill, stop. Go. The crystals. You have to look. Embrace the epiphany. Bill, stop. Get off me. This is important.
Lieutenant Pill, log addendum. It is very unfortunate that Chumley has taken my grenade away.
Flex Officer's Log. We find ourselves on a station called Epiphany, which may offer the very secrets of knowledge, the knowledge of the very universe. The gardener says that the Epiphany is dangerous, and my crewmen seem to agree. But have we not always, as a species, always pursued growth, always pursued the next step? Have we not always moved on from one phase to something better? Yes, there are always those who will stand in the way. But men of good conscience must always be willing to move onwards, to move forwards. That is our duty as humanity.
Pill addendum. My epiphany about punching. If I had a grenade in my fist, it would punch a lot harder.